Hello and welcome to this recording of our wonderful webinar that we just ran. So we had a great group of people come in and share some really wonderful things. But because lots of you couldn't come, we wanted to just make sure that we got this over to you so you didn't miss out. So welcome to our micro session on how AI is shaping HR and actually how we can avoid the pitfalls that other organisations have already had the pain of experiencing. So we're going to explore where bias hides, how to spot it, and also how to make your AI and your decisions fairer and smarter. So if you're here watching this video, you've probably already heard lots of research around bias in general. And I'm sure most of us are probably aware of the research around how people with white sounding names, like mine, Zoe Holland, are more likely to get interview invites than the names that sound black or brown. So did you know that a UK study also takes this a little bit further? So AI CV screening tools, something we have all been using for quite some time, no doubt, in HR, favoured white associated names 85% of the time, and actually never selected a black sounding male name over a white sounding male name. So if AI can pick up bias from CVs, it can also pick up bias from performance reviews, promotion decisions, pay data, all of those other aspects within an employee's experience. So that is why I'm sending you this video. This is what we're here to do. It's our job in HR, and to be honest, anyone that works with a team, to apply our critical thinking and to use our human abilities to challenge any built-in bias in the systems we're using on a daily basis. But I'm conscious I'm sending this to a fair few people. Some of you don't have a clue who I am. I'm Zoe Holland, and for those of you that don't know me, I have been working with organisations from around the world for around 15 years, whether it's in corporate or since I set up Zing Learning. So I have been working to help leaders really shape strategy, culture, performance, all of that sort of stuff through learning, change and inclusion. I've been blending DEI and L&D and culture change interventions so organisations don't just say they're inclusive, they actually become really high performing adaptive systems as well. So we're going to explore how AI in HR isn't just a technical tool, it's a big strategic driver, but if not used with purpose, it can unintentionally reinforce bias in general. So I'm going to give you, hopefully not too technical, an oversight of how this works in general. So I think we should probably start with the state of AI in HR in general. Now, did you know that nearly 80% of the world's largest companies reported using AI globally? That's huge. But actually, 92% of global businesses are planning to ramp that up even further with more investment in generative AI in the next 3 years too. So it's absolutely everywhere. It's recruiting, performance, pay, retention, lots of other business areas as well, and it's not going away. And here's the thing, nearly half of employees surveyed in another piece of research found that 49% of people actually believe AI hiring tools are more biased than humans are. That's a big trust gap, especially when AI is becoming part of so many of our HR processes and our day-to-day in general. So what I want us to do, and I don't know if you can see all that text because my head is just there, apologies, but we want to focus on fairness, transparency, we want to think about accountability, how can we build and utilize these systems that are trustworthy and that people can trust as well. And I don't think you can look at any of this stuff without focusing on the whole journey of our people. Because bias in AI isn't just about recruitment, it can influence all the different areas. So let's understand that further by exploring where we are when we're using AI right now in our organisations. So the employee life cycle impact of AI in HR is really, really interesting because when we talk about AI in HR, it's easy to think about the really obvious stage, which is recruitment, because automation and algorithms is something that we've been working with for some time and naturally it's making headlines. But the truth is, AI is now touching lots of different parts of the employee journey, from how people are hired to how they're onboarded, how they're assessed, promoted, even paid. So that means that the impact and, of course, then the risks don't stop once someone gets the job. And at each stage, AI is making inferences, it's making recommendations, decisions, all of that sort of stuff that can shape someone's career. And obviously, when our systems are learning from biased data that we are putting into the systems, because hello, humans, we are naturally biased, it can make assumptions around things like fit or potential. And of course, the consequences can quietly multiply across the organisation. So let's take a little route down this life cycle and have a look at where bias can creep in. What are some of the real case studies that have been shown, and what lessons can we learn from those people that have already gone through this pain in the first place? Let's start in our favourite place where AI is probably most rife and it's doing most of the heavy lifting for us already: recruitment. So we're well aware of the bias that can sit around CV screening. But did you know that some tools don't just look at skills or experience, they actually start to make guesses about people, things like their gender, ethnicity, age, all sorts of things. And that's just based on things like names, photos, and even video backgrounds. Video is something I think we thought was quite safe because it's so much harder to fake, which we've now learned is not the case. But also, when we see the human moving, we felt like AI was a little bit more challenging to have that bias applied. Turns out that's not true. Now, of course, the guesses that the AI systems are making can be wrong or biased. And if the AI makes decisions based on them, it could be accidentally filtering out perfectly good candidates without anyone noticing. A good example of this is one case that used an AI search tool for sourcing candidates from public profiles. Now, they inferred gender and ethnicity, and they allowed the recruiters then to filter candidates by those inferred traits. So you can see some very obvious bias and some very underlying bias there. So you can see how that's starting to layer up. There was also a really interesting study by the University of Cambridge that showed even tiny things like lighting or a video background could change the candidate's scores. So I think the big takeaway here is that AI notices small signals we might not even think about, and those signals can create unfair outcomes. So that's why it's so important to audit our tools and to see how they work in our own context. So sometimes testing them can be really, really useful. If we move along the employee life cycle, we can see onboarding and work access here. So AI is popping up everywhere, even in onboarding. Now, chatbots, mentor suggestions, training plans, they're all great, fantastic, saving us loads of time. But if AI can start reflecting those kind of narrow ideas of culture fit that maybe we might have experienced in our own organisation, then that's a problem. There's a really interesting case here from Uber Eats where a delivery driver kept getting flagged by their racial, I keep making that Freudian slip there, but you'll understand why in a minute, their facial recognition system. And he had actually had to keep resubmitting selfies multiple times, and eventually his account was completely suspended. So no work, no pay for this guy. Now, this is an ongoing bias that we know about where facial recognition systems really struggle with accuracy for darker skin tones, while lighter skin tones are recognised more reliably. Now, there's a whole other webinar that we can do around why that is the case. But let's think about the lesson that is learned here. Anytime AI controls access, whether it's work or tasks or opportunities, we need oversight, we need transparency, and we need a really simple way to appeal the decisions that AI is coming up with. Otherwise, it could be unintentionally locking people out like this person sadly experienced. If we move along a little bit further, we get to performance management. So AI is naturally creeping into performance reviews, and some tools are prompting managers with suggested feedback or even scores, which is brilliant, super helpful, save our managers loads of time, save ourselves a lot of time. But it's actually really risky because if AI is learning from biased historical ratings, which naturally it will be, we're really starting to see that come to light then. So For example, UK firms and even Morgan Chase, put my teeth back in, don't know what's going on, JP Morgan Chase, women were more likely to get flagged as emotional, and employees from underrepresented groups were often really underrated compared to those from overrepresented groups. So there's a really good lesson here, which is keep humans in the loop, check outcomes by demographic groups, and again, use AI to support your decisions, not to replace them. If we move over to career development and learning, we're really starting to see who is ready for promotion, which courses people should be taking. But of course, AI is learning from the past. So if past promotional data favoured men over women, the AI is likely to do the same. If some groups historically missed certain trainings, then AI will reinforce that pattern as well. So there's really simple ways, again, we can overcome this. You're probably starting to feel a pattern here. Monitor our AI, make sure that we are looking to see if there are any historical inequalities that are being repeated, and also use AI as a guide, not as your decision maker. The human aspect to this is so important to make sure we can work in harmony with the AI that is helping us in so many wonderful ways. And then compensation and reward. So automated pay and bonus tools might look objective, but actually if they're trained on biased historical data, they can unintentionally maintain pay gaps. A really good example is lots of organisations have to report on the gender pay gap, but there's less legislation across the world around race or ethnicity, and around disability, socioeconomic background, all of those other things. So actually we could be maintaining the pay gaps, not just for women in general, but everybody, all the different groups of people that are underrepresented within our workspaces. And then finally, we get on to engagement and well-being, because this is a big one that most of us are having part of our big day-to-day in general, even if we're not in HR or L&D or culture or OD or whatever else it is, even if we're not in DEI. Engagement and well-being is something that is built into our roles as people managers, as team members, as peers, and those sorts of things. So when we are looking at AI and how amazing it can be to analyse our surveys, look at our chat sentiment, look at our collaboration data, all of that really cool stuff to see who might be engaged or disengaged, it's not perfect. Misreads can happen, especially when we're looking at different cultures or communication styles, especially if we're a global organisation as well. Chances are, even if we are a national organisation, we will have different cultures, different languages, different communication styles of people. All of those nuances, AI isn't able to pick up in the same way as a human can. So I want us to do the same thing as I've said with all the others. Keep the humans in the loop. Make sure we're testing our AI responses and all of those sorts of things. Because, you know, I'm British. There's a very well-known thing about British people. We always say we're fine, constantly, I'm fine, even if we're having a really hard time in our lives. AI can't seem to pick up on that understatement. So this is the sort of thing that I think elaborates on the fact that we actually need both things to work in unison, humans and AI. Now this is a moment that I would have, and I had in our session a little bit earlier, which is just take a moment to reflect, look at the stages where AI is making decisions in your organisation. Where do you think, if there's any bias sneaking through, that actually you're going to see the biggest impact? Now, typically people tend to answer that it's all of them, but I want you just to have a second, maybe pause the video for a second and just think, actually, what is it that I am going to notice the biggest impact on if the AI is continuously getting it wrong or analysing groups in the wrong way? Okay, if you paused, welcome back. If you didn't, then let's carry on. So safeguards and practical strategies is something that I think is really important, because we can talk about all of the reasons why AI can have bias built in, which naturally it will, because humans, hello, we are naturally biased, and we will naturally feed in our own perspectives, our own information, our own data, and of course the output can only come from that. So when it comes to keeping AI fair in HR, the process doesn't need to be complicated. I think we've got so many tools and resources in our field that let's just keep it really, really simple. And I'm going to take you through the 3 areas now. So the first one is design. So this is where our foundations are built, and naturally this is where most of our bias risks can be prevented. So if everyone around the table looks and thinks the same way, your AI probably will too. Now get your team comfortable with using AI in their day-to-day. That's a really great way to make sure it's being fed by lots of different types of people that will more likely then gain an output that has more diverse responses. A really simple one to get started with is ChatGPT. So set up a team ChatGPT so everybody can share their inputs and get their outputs from there. But then of course you can learn from each other, and the system can have all of those diverse ways of looking at things to be able to output. That's really going to help you to bypass some of that. And also I think what can be helpful is to define what fairness and metrics kind of look like up front with you. So as a team, define what fair means. That's going to help you to pinpoint in ChatGPT or any other kind of AI that you're using. That's going to really help you. And also don't forget externally. So it's all great that you're working internally and making sure your AI systems are as fair and robust as possible. But your vendors, your suppliers, people like us will all be using AI as well. Ask them, how are they testing for bias? How are they checking different sources? How are they auditing their own AI that they're using? How transparent are the systems that they're using? And actually, if they can't answer those questions clearly, or if they feel really thrown by that question, the chances are that they've never really thought about it. So just really vet your vendors in that way, and just take that with a little pinch of salt in general. Now, if we go on to the second part, this is deploy. So this is where tech meets real people. The very simple aspect here is that we need the human aspect in the loop. So when we're deploying our AI, how are we bringing humans in from that kind of initial step into using it to actually really looking at it in general? How can we be transparent with people about the AI we're using as well? You know, I shared just a moment ago that 49% of people are employees even are saying that they find that AI in recruitment specifically is biased. So if we've got 50% of our people saying that actually they don't trust AI, we need to make sure we're bringing them in the loop whenever we are using it, and they're being really, really transparent with that as well. Now, the third one is monitor. So this is something that I think we're getting really good at in our field, but I think we need to get even better at. Regularly tracking our outcomes. So not just with AI in general, but if we're regularly tracking our outcomes by demographic, are certain groups consistently scoring lower, progressing less, or being flagged more? Those are the signals to investigate our AI systems. How can we also keep our feedback channels open so employees and managers can flag those issues really, really quickly? And how can we then make sure that we are using them in a way that is smart and inclusive and helping us to be even more efficient with our jobs, not just causing us issues? So we've actually pulled all these actions together in a really simple practical tool and checklist, which we are happy to share with anyone. We'll probably send it along with this video. If we don't, chase us, come back to us, we'll make sure that you have it. It's a really helpful tool to make sure you're looking at everything in the right way. Okay, so that's pretty much where we're at. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a recap on what we've discovered there, because AI is everywhere. Not just in HR, we're seeing it across all aspects of the business now, but in HR, we're seeing it everywhere. Recruiting, onboarding, performance, pay, engagement, well-being, all the spaces. And listen, it's brilliant. It's making us faster and better at our jobs, but it can also amplify bias if we're not using it carefully. We've seen it in action. We've seen inferred demographics. We've seen facial recognition blocking work. We've seen historical bias showing up in performance reviews and patterns repeated across pay and learning and engagement. So think about that really simple model. Design it well, deploy it with your people, monitor it consistently. It's going to be a really powerful way for you to be able to make sure you're creating true transparency and fairness with your AI tools. Because if you don't, someone else or the algorithm is going to decide who in your organization thrives. And that's obviously not something we want to be looking at. And that's it. So, nice 20-minute video for you there. I want you to just email us if you want to have a chat, if you want the checklist. We'll try and send that to you anyway. But we're always here. We always want to talk about how you can enhance your organisation in great ways, how you can make them more inclusive, how you can create more opportunities for people. You know, we are experts in inclusion, but also OD and all sorts of wonderful things as well. So come talk to us. We're always keen to talk about AI, HR, bias, all of those wonderful things. Thanks so much for joining us and taking the time to watch. Bye.